I generally find retro PC gaming to be ignored within most of mainstream gaming. Even amongst retro gaming fans, the focus is typically on older consoles like the NES and Genesis. With that in mind, whenever someone wants to get into retro PC gaming and asks me for recommendations, the first two games I recommend are Deus Ex and Dungeon Keeper. The fact that this game can even be mentioned in the same breath as Deus Ex is a testament to how great it is. So what makes it so good? Let's find out. For those not in the know, Dungeon Keeper was developed by Bullfrog Productions, the studio founded by Peter Molyneux before Lionhead. Basically, they made tons of classic PC games including Syndicate, Populous, and Theme Hospital, and then EA completely mishandled them and closed the studio, which was the beginning of EA becoming one of the most hated gaming companies to date. So after that little history lesson, let's talk gameplay. Dungeon Keeper is essentially Diablo 2, but instead of adventuring and questing, you play an evil dungeon master, creating, upgrading, and maintaining a dungeon to gain riches and slaughter heroes. There are different areas that you start in, and once you've built up your dungeon and slaughtered the Lord of the Land, a powerful enemy hero, you win the map. On some maps, the enemy heroes will come to your dungeon in an attempt to destroy it, and on other maps, you and your enemies will be building dungeons on opposite sides of the map, and whoever destroys the enemy dungeon heart wins. Within your dungeon, you will be building different buildings, tunneling out rock to design your dungeon, casting spells, researching, summoning creatures, training creatures, etc. Everything is controlled via the mouse, with tunneling, placing buildings, moving minions, and casting spells all being mouse-driven. There are a decent number of buildings and creatures to play with, and the game introduces them at a good pace to keep you entertained with new content, but not overwhelm you with too many mechanics to learn at once. The gameplay is really fun and simple to grasp, especially for a retro PC game, which sometimes have a tendency to be a little obtuse. The tutorial teaches you the basics and doesn't force you to read a manual, but at the same time doesn't shove every detail of the game in your face. For instance, I discovered relatively early in my playthrough that building dungeons with separate rooms from each other in fractalized patterns is the most efficient way, without the game feeling the need to shove 30 pop-ups in my face. The game also doesn't feel too overwhelming at any point, which is an issue I often have with strategy games. Part of what contributes to this is the lack of direct control over your monsters. Unlike most strategy games where you issue commands to your monsters, in this, the most you can do is pick them up and drop them somewhere. You have to plan out and design your dungeon with traps to weaken the enemy and then drop in some creatures to finish them off. The only sort of direct control you have over your creatures is a possession spell, which allows you to fight as an individual creature from a first-person perspective, which is something that hadn't been seen in this genre and really hasn't been replicated to date. The visuals are nothing special. It mostly contains some standard 2D PC sprite work, but drawn as if the camera is above it and at an angle to give it a 3D look. One of the issues with this, however, is that you can't move the camera, so things on the left side of the map can sometimes be difficult to see when they're up against the wall. Overall, if you're looking for a classic PC game to kill some time with, you can't do much better than Dungeon Keeper, so grab it on GOG and kill some heroes.